Does that sound like a carjacking to you? That sounds pretty personal to me. You shoot someone 5 times and you shoot someone else 17 times, and it's a 2012 Kia. Man, no one's stealing anything that's 12 years old unless you're Diddy. So there's some suffering in you that could make you angry and bitter and aggressive. What do you do with it? Because again, all of those things have their place. If someone comes through that door over there with a shotgun, I hope that some of you in here are angry and hostile and have resentment and contempt towards this person. I hope you're not trying to form a restorative circle with this person and peer mediate your way into a mutual understanding of their felt needs. So that's a person who has to be dealt with immediately. And then we can talk about feelings afterwards. How did it feel to take this guy out? But if it becomes the dominant mode of your personality, it's a problem. In that case, the suffering is dominating you. It's creating you, rather than you using the suffering to create who you want to be. So that's personality. That's you. That's free will. What do I do with it? In other words, if I ask you to describe who you are, or what you are in that context, it's a difficult thing for a lot of people to do, because we get almost confused between these two things. Now, some people might answer that question by saying, "Well, I'm a human being I'm a person who likes." And you start telling me the things that you like. You start telling me the things that are important to you, family, friends. Tell me about your values. The thing that you tell me about yourself first and foremost is typically the thing that's most important to you. Now, you'll see this in the letters of introduction that you guys wrote to me. The assignment was just, tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. Well, what should I tell you? Whatever I need to know in order to teach you better. In other words, what are some things that are in your life that if I knew them, it would probably help me teach you better? And some of you guys wrote like pages, and some people wrote like this much. And both of those two things, by the way, are very informative to me about who you are as a person. I even kept track of them in terms of who turned them in on time and who turned them in late. And if you turned them in late, how late did you turn them in? Because all of that tells me something about this. It doesn't tell me anything at all about your biological entity with your DNA, but it does tell me about this personality. This is just kind of like I don't know if this makes you valuable or not, but this is the thing that really makes you valuable. When you read stories about like battles, they say, 30,000 people were killed in one day. We tend to look at that and just as just like, oh wow, that's a big number. But it's just like a number. You don't know the names of the people, you don't know what was important to them, you don't know anything at all about them as a person. Now if you sit there and you actually end up studying the lives of these 30,000 people, all of a sudden the depth of the tragedy really starts to mean something. Like when we say that if you know a person who's involved in something, well, all of a sudden now it's, because it becomes so personal, now it starts to matter to you a heck of a lot more. So for example, before we went on break, a couple days before we went on break, there was a shooting over in Barrio Logan, and 2 people were killed. It was a carjacking, whatever. Somebody hit me up and said, "Hey man, did you hear about Mo?" And like, Mo's a friend of mine. I go, "Yeah, I've heard about Mo before." What do you mean? Like, I've talked to Mo in a couple months. He's all, "Dude," and he sent me a link to this article. My friend shot and killed 2 people over in Barrio Logan, and he didn't just kill them. He apparently walks up to the car and he shot one person 5 times, and then he shot another person 17 times. Now, if you know anything at all about firearms, that means he had to reload that thing, dude. It means he walked up, unloaded, had to reload it, and then shoot again. And that's assuming he hit all those shots, which, the first couple of shots don't always hit. He gets in this car, and the guy who he shot 17 times, allegedly, his wife is in the back seat. And so she please don't kill me. So he tells her, get out. So she gets out, and then he drives the car away. It's a 2012 Kia. He gets arrested. up in Los Angeles, in Rosemead, which is interesting, not too far from where I grew up. And they find the firearm in the car. It's registered to him. They find shell casings. They find blood on his shoes. They pretty much everything that could possibly count against you in court, they found it in that car. And so my friend was, I was talking to some friends the other day, and they were just like, man, did you hear about it? Did you hear about Mo? Yeah. And I said, you know what? I'm going to say it. Mo did nothing wrong. They're like, what the hell? You know, I go, well, hear me out. Hear me out. I don't know a whole heck of a lot about it besides what I've seen in the papers, so I always take that with a grain of salt. But does that sound like a carjacking to you? That sounds pretty personal to me. You shoot someone 5 times and then you shoot someone else 17 times. You're not trying to steal their car, man. 'Cause you take that place to the chop shop, man. They're gonna just wash the blood out of that car, you know. And it's a 2012 Kia, man. You know, yeah, no one's stealing anything that's 12 years old unless you're Diddy. So he obviously had something against these people. Now, what it was, I have no idea. Was he in the wrong? Probably. Yeah, I mean, you shoot somebody that many times, probably. But my point is that this is the kind of thing that you could see a story in the newspaper and just go, 2 people were killed. It's very tragic. Turn the page and go on to the next thing. But as soon as you look at it and you go, oh wait, I know that person. I know that. All of a sudden, it becomes more important to you, more interesting to you, because a man shot 2 people of our Logan. Wow, 3 human beings were involved. All of a sudden now, when you know the people involved, it's because you know their personality. It's not just that you have a personal connection to it, which is a big part of it, true, but it's even bigger than that because you know the personality. Now, why is it that this would have happened? I don't know. Because of all of that, I know that there was something going on with him. I know that his life was kind of, wobbly at this point. And then a friend of mine, I saw him on Saturday, and I mentioned that to him. I made that comment about, I think Mo did nothing wrong. And he's laughing, and he goes, you know what? I think it had something to do with Mo's brother. I never knew Mo had a brother. And so I'm guessing that it was probably these 2 dudes, something with his brother, I guess, and then Mo snapped, and he went and did that. Now, again, it's all that personality that makes us interested in the case. So what he's getting at, he's saying that suffering is the substance of life and it's the root of personality. You can think of this as being you. This is the you that we're talking about. This is the tree that grows up, and that's you. And the you is all of your psychological experiences over time. It's your psychology, it's your mind, it's your thoughts, it's your values, this whole thing that becomes, that is you, which is like this continuous psychological state over time. When you were 5 years old, are you the same you as you are today? No, because you've developed, but you're still connected. It's still part of who you are. This is obvious because I may have mentioned this part before, so I'll be quick with it. But let's say that, you're going to rob a bank, let's say. It always has to be extreme. You go to the bank, you rob it, on your way out, police are waiting for you, you get into a shootout with them, and you get so shot up that you end up having to have one of your arms amputated. You go to court, judge asks you how you plead, and you say, not guilty, completely innocent, didn't do this. They might look at you and be like, what do you mean they found you on the sidewalk, there's videos of you. They found your wallet, your ID in your wallet in your pocket. There's no doubt that this is you. And you say, that's stupid. Look at the surveillance footage. That guy's got 2 arms. I only have 1. Couldn't possibly be me. That was, I used to be somebody else when I had 2 arms, but now I'm still completely different. I have only 1 arm now. That's stupid. We know that that's stupid. What if you lost 2 arms? Or 3 arms? Or your leg, 1 leg, 2 legs. At what point do you lose body parts until you're no longer you? And typically what we say is when you lose your head, when you lose consciousness. So you are this thing of consciousness. So it's your consciousness that's over time. And the trip is we have no idea where this comes from. Even today, all of our brain research, we're no closer to figuring out where consciousness comes from than we were 2,000 years ago when the Greeks were trying to figure it out. So instead, we just gotta take for granted that that's what it is. So I'm getting somewhere. So now, when you ask the question, how is it that you become you? Well, it's your experiences, all of your experiences. And your experiences are rooted, a lot of times, in the kind of suffering that you have. These are supposed to be roots, by the way. You know, with my incredible art skills. These are roots. And so what's something that you suffered as you were younger? You know, or not even when you're younger, just something that you have suffered in your life. Abuse, loss. It doesn't have to even just be when you're young. It could be loss. Remember from our last article, it could be neglect. It could be maybe a sense of insecurity so that you lie about who you are and having a Korean boyfriend. We'll put insecurity. The funny thing is that the things that we suffer, they don't have to be as catastrophic as we sometimes kind of assume they have to be. Oh, so like your parent has to die. No, it could just be a lack of security, an insecurity about yourself, about who you are. It could be something small like that that just needles away at you over a long period of time. Anybody here, I wonder if anybody has ever had a pain before that just like bugs you for a long period, something stupid, like you ever cut your thumb or something like that? And then it just turns out that every single time you do anything in life, it seems like you're scraping your thumb, or like you have like a bruised elbow or something like that, and you never really realize how many times your elbow touches walls or desks or whatever. It's like one little tiny thing that just over time just annoys you and irritates at you. That could be something like that, an insecurity. It doesn't have to be a big catastrophic loss, like I lost my arm in an attempted bank robbery. It could be something just small over time. The big catastrophic things are sometimes easier to deal with. The loss of a parent, the loss of even a pet for some people. But the most tragic one is the loss of self, which there's probably no recovering from. So we'll leave that one out. But all of this kind of creates you into what you are. So the question becomes, I think anyway, this trunk right here. Because the roots absorb the nutrients. They get processed through the trunk, and then that's what comes out. So I'm going to put a question mark right here because it's a question for everybody. What do you do with the suffering that you encounter? It was Nietzsche who said, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. But of course, Nietzsche is talking about himself. This isn't true about most people. Most people are not made stronger by the things that they suffer through. Most people, when they suffer, they become jaded, angry, bitter, resentful, full of contempt, aggressive, rebellious. And by the way, all of these things have their place in a life. There should be things that you have contempt towards. And there are things you should be aggressive towards, things that you should be angry towards. But when it's your dominant mode of personality and it's how you interact with the world, it can't help but make this even worse than you. In other words, does this become green or does it become all frayed and dyed and ugly because of how it is that you're processing this suffering? And it's difficult because a lot of times we don't start off life choosing how it is that we process these things, as the last 3 articles we looked at all talked about. But instead, there's a choice that's in here. It doesn't feel like it necessarily. But how do you process the suffering? You become more empathetic. And by the way, empathetic doesn't mean weaker. So oftentimes people confuse kindness with weakness. By the way, you can't be kind unless you're strong. If you're being kind and you're weak, you're just weak. You can only be kind from a position of strength. It's like you look at a rabbit, and the rabbit, you have a rabbit in your room, the rabbit does not attack you. Is the rabbit being kind? No. What would happen if a rabbit attacked you? Hopefully. If it was a life and death struggle between you and the rabbit. Thank you, I appreciate that. At least one person would kill the rabbit. They would be like, well, I guess the rabbit kills me. No, hopefully you would kill the rabbit. Now, if you have so the rabbit not attacking you is not virtuous, it's not kind, it's not empathetic, it's just weak. Now, if a lion is in your room and it's looking at you and it chooses not to attack you, what happens if the lion attacks you? You were the lion. Would you kill the... Yeah, I thought, I wasn't sure you weren't saying, I would kill that fucking lion. You'd probably die. So if the lion doesn't attack you, it's kind, it's virtuous, it's moral. And if you're just weak and you can't do anything about it, you're not kind and virtuous. The question is, there's some suffering in you that could make you angry and bitter and aggressive. What do you do with it? Because again, all of those things have their place. If someone comes through that door over there with a shotgun, I hope that some of you in here are angry and hostile and have resentment and contempt towards this person. I hope you're not trying to form a restorative circle with this person and peer mediate your way into a mutual understanding of their felt needs. Because that's a person who has to be dealt with immediately. And then we can talk about feelings afterwards. How did it feel to take this guy out? Because they all have their place. But if it becomes the dominant mode of your personality, it's a problem. Because in that case, the suffering is dominating you. It's creating you. Rather than you using the suffering to create who you want to be. So that's personality. That's you. That's free will. What do I do with it? So, questions? Comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Dope. So we've got, Happy Wednesday.